Welcome into this Big Ten today. Thanks for starting your weekend with us here on the Big Ten Network. I am Dave Revson. Got some football news as well to get to in the next hour, but we are going to start with hoops. And who better to take us through that than Andy Katz? Andy, a month from now, we'll be in the heart of the Big Ten tourney. Hard to believe.
It's really amazing. And actually, next weekend, we're going to get a sneak peek at that Sweet 16, I guess you can call it Sweet 16 reveal. And I think we're going to find a number of Big Ten teams, maybe even the top of the Big Ten, on those top four lines.
Yeah, a lot of power up top of the Big Ten this year, as we've got a number of teams that you can look at and say legitimate Final Four team. We focus in on our big story, and let's focus in on the Big Ten tournament bracket. Remember, everyone makes the tourney this year, so it starts a day earlier, Tuesday in Chicago. The bottom four teams will play there. So we have single byes, double byes, and triple byes. The top four do not play until Friday, so that's 4 weeks from today. As of now, Michigan would be the top seed, Illinois second, Michigan State third, and Nebraska fourth. Purdue loses the tiebreaker to the Huskers and Spartans. Then you'd have Wisconsin and UCLA. They are just a game back in the loss column. Andy, Michigan is in the best shape here, and it's really hard to imagine a scenario, frankly, where Michigan doesn't at least end up in the top four.
Yeah, no, they're for sure going to be in the top four. They do, by the way, have the most difficult schedule on the road of any other Big Ten team. And let's be honest, the reason is that television, whether it's CBS, Fox, and obviously we'd love to have them, and we've got them one more time against Minnesota, but they want them on those prime afternoon games. And that's why Michigan has a number of those coming up, and their schedule is backloaded. They still have to go to Iowa, still go to Illinois, they still go to Purdue, and then they have that monster non-conference game next Saturday in D.C. against Duke. But we have seen that Michigan can handle the home, road, neutral, doesn't matter. Could they lose one or two of those? Sure. I don't think they're losing more than that. And I don't think they're losing their spot in the top four. And I still think ultimately, because they're the best team, they will be the number one team in the Big Ten tournament and the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
You see the schedule here for the Wolverines. Obviously, the huge game at Illinois on February 27th. They get the rematch of the Michigan State game, game 2 of that season series. And then, as you mentioned, you and I will be in Ann Arbor for that game against Minnesota, which is our lone remaining game here on the Big Ten Network. Okay, so if we're establishing that we believe Michigan is definitely going to be one of those top four seeds, you have 3 spots left then, and you've got a number of teams, as we documented, jockeying for positioning there to get that triple bye, the first ever triple bye in the Big Ten tournament. Who else do you like among that group?
Well, I mean, if we were talking scheduling-wise, I mean, Nebraska actually has the best schedule down the stretch in terms of playing teams that are below them. But, you know, can they handle it? And that'll be the question. You know, are they at one point, you know, I think we thought they might be the top 2 team. But to me, Illinois, and hopefully they will be healthy. And I have a quick update for you in texting with Brad Underwood. Kylan Boswell is actually going to practice today, which is great news. He's been out for quite some time with that hand injury. And if he can come back, whether it's for this weekend's game against Indiana or at least next week, that would be wonderful news for the Illini. Andrei Stojakovic, who did not play in that loss to Wisconsin, he's out with an ankle injury, and he's still, we don't know his status for this weekend. So they were down 2 starters. I think ultimately, if they get healthy, they will be one of those 4, despite, yes, a difficult schedule. And so then you're really looking at, you know, Nebraska, this is my opinion here, Nebraska, Michigan State, Purdue, and Wisconsin, 4 for 2. I kind of like the way Purdue's playing right now, despite, you know, the way they played against Oregon. They still won the game. So I think Purdue will find a way to be in that top 4. So now you're down to 3 spots for 1, if my math is correct there, or two for 1, 3 for 1.
Yeah, if you count UCLA. I mean, look, I think UCLA.
No. Nebraska, it'd be Nebraska, Michigan State, Wisconsin. So 3 for 1.
Well, you're not. UCLA's tied with Wisconsin right now.
Yes, and I think UCLA is going to lose to Michigan, so I think they're going to slide out.
No, I'm with you. I think UCLA's schedule is just so difficult here with Michigan, Michigan State, and Illinois coming up. But I just would say, like, mathematically,
yes.
they're right there. So, no, I'm with you. I mean, you look at the schedule, Nebraska has the most favorable. Purdue, according to Bart Torvik, has the most difficult schedule. And I guess I look at it and say, Andy, like, do we get the Purdue that we saw in the first half against Nebraska the other night? Because if we can get that Purdue, I mean, that's the team that we've kind of all been waiting for. And I don't know about you, but I sat there and thought to myself, okay, they figured it out. They figured out how to play with Coffin, Red, and Clough together. You know, it feels like Fletcher Lawyer's coming on here, and that felt like the team that was the preseason number one. And then in the second half, I mean, they end up fortunate to escape. And you look at how tough the schedule is, and I don't know. I don't know whether I think they end up in the top four.
Well, Dave, as you know, you're an original Sixer here at BTN, and so you know in this league how difficult it is to win on the road in the Big Ten. So I wasn't shocked that Nebraska made a huge comeback at home against Purdue. I'm gonna be glass half full and say that Purdue is going to be more of the team we saw in the first half down the stretch. You know, can they knock off Michigan at home? We shall see, but they do at least get them at home. They do, go and play Indiana again next week. Home or road, I still like their chances against the Hoosiers. In terms of their ability to win, they've already lost once to them, but now they get them back. And so I like Purdue's chances next week, potentially winning both games. We shall see. The other thing, just to point out, when you said at the top of the show, this is a little bit difficult, and I think our viewers may be a little confused when they say, wait a minute, Purdue is not on the top four and Nebraska is, and you just have to remember that it's not just head-to-head. It's the combined records against those teams. Yep. And so that's why Purdue is not where Nebraska is, even though they just beat Nebraska at Nebraska.
Right. When you have a multiple team tiebreaker, you factor in, as you said, combined records against one another. And so, again, so much of this is fluid because of how close these teams are as we head down the stretch here. Kind of more of a power rating, I think, than anything here as to, hey, where do these teams stand, rather than necessarily diving into the micro of who has the tiebreakers right now, because that can change in a heartbeat. Important one tonight in that race. We have Wisconsin hosting Michigan State. Man, the Badgers, I mean, you want to talk about enhancing your NCAA tourney resume. Like, forget about the Big Ten tourney. But we're talking about a Wisconsin team that may have the two best wins in the country. I mean, certainly going to Michigan and winning, I think you would argue, is the best win in the country. I mean, you win on the road against a team that's probably going to be number one if they take care of business this weekend. And then going to Illinois, I mean, those are great wins. Think about them at home against Michigan State.
Well, first of all, I would almost take out the qualifier. I think they are the best wins, on the road in the country. And what's crazy is, sometimes we have to just peel back the data, and all quad ones are not created equal. So they've only got two, but they got the two best quad one wins.
Right.
So you can't just say, the record is 2-6 or whatever it is, in the quad one compartment. They're two of the best wins. First of all, I was talking to Greg Gard yesterday about the way they are playing right now. And think about in both those wins, they scored over 90 points. And I don't think Greg Gard gets enough credit, and his staff, for how they have adjusted to the personnel over the last couple of years. You cannot slap that stigma on Wisconsin that, this is Dick Bennett, Bo Ryan, swing offense in the 40s. They have adjusted. They have made a conscious effort to adjust to the personnel. Last year, certainly with Tanjay and Blackwell. Now, Nick Boyd and Blackwell. They need those guys to score to be successful. They cannot rely, you've seen them in person on their front court. But when those guys are on, that's one of the best backcourts in the country in terms of their scoring ability. And for them to get into the 90s, I don't think Michigan State, could keep up with them if that's what the game is tonight. Michigan State can go through some droughts. So if they can get this game at that level and that, and that speed, even though usually Michigan State does like to run, but to score in the 90s, then they're going to win.
No, I'm with you. I mean, Boyd and Blackwell had 49 of the 92 points against Illinois. Those guys are so good. And to your point, I don't even think it's necessarily them adjusting the personnel. I think it's finding the personnel to fit the style that they want to play now. I mean, give Kirk Penny a ton of credit, who was on the staff and has since gone back to his native New Zealand. But I think he really convinced Greg Gard that you needed to evolve this system a little bit. And it's so funny to think about, what did we used to say about Wisconsin? You know, you dig yourself a hole against Illinois. Well, they're not a team that's built to come back. They're absolutely a team that's built to come back now. And it is, we have to adjust our mindset. But I agree with you 100%. Like, I give Greg Gard so much credit for looking at kind of what his program was, what they needed to do to take another step. And then if Austin Rapp is playing the way he has his last two outings, Andy, I mean, they're going to be really tough to beat with the guard play and the outside shooting from the big men.
And so what does that mean for Michigan State? Well, first of all, we know Tom Izzo's been incredibly frustrated with their turnovers. They cannot afford to turn over the ball in the teen range, where you're in your 13 to 15 kind of turnovers, because those will lead to run out and threes and so on for Wisconsin. And, look, Jordan Scott, Christian Winter Scott's son, who, is doing a great job of getting into that starting lineup and making big shots. But defensively, he's going to have to step up as a freshman, because there's going to be some big assignments on the perimeter. And Jeremy Fears is going to have to take care of the basketball. No question about it. I mean, he can do it, but he's got to be a little bit more disciplined. And if he can, and Cohen Carr can get out on the break the way we know he can, and the bigs can control the backboard, then they can steal a road win. But it's going to be very tough for Michigan State. It just shows how critical that game was that we see on our screen right here for them to beat Illinois last week, because they had just lost the previous week to Minnesota, escaped Rutgers, lost to Michigan. That Illinois win was a stopgap among a very difficult stretch that they're in right now.
Yeah, it was an enormous win for exactly the reasons you outlined. They were coming off the Minnesota loss. That's their last road game, and that was one that you would not have expected them to lose. And all of a sudden, you could see this spiraling into a real losing streak. So a huge win over Illinois, not just to reinforce the NCAA tourney resume, but also, as you say, maybe to restore a little bit of confidence in where this thing is heading. Huge game tonight. We'll talk a lot more about what's to come this weekend in Big Ten Hoops with Andy in just a bit. But I also mentioned it doesn't get any better than what we've got in wrestling tonight. A massive doubleheader to get your weekend started. Penn State and Ohio State collide. It's 1 versus 2. Then Michigan locks up with Iowa. Coverage begins with the pregame show, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Penn State coach Cale Sanderson on the challenge ahead.
I mean, we know who we are and what we have, and we just enjoy competing, and we're grateful for this opportunity to wrestle in the Jordan Center against one of the top teams in the country. What's important is that we maintain where we're trending in a good positive direction, and the guys are getting better, and we're focusing on the right things. We love big matches. Our guys love big matches. It's obviously a big match. Ohio State's always a great program. I mean, Coach Ryan's done a phenomenal job. Just very consistent every year. They're a title contender, and they have just an awesome program all the way around. Just up and down the lineup, very similar to a couple of these other dual meets that we've had, where everyone's just got to go be the best they can be, and let's have some fun.